Now this is a true hot rod survivor from the 1950s. It's a 32 Ford 5-window coupe. It's got period correct pieces front to back, and the new owner of this car is completely going through it and making this thing roadworthy again and putting it back on the road where it belongs. I recently had a chance to visit Josh Scronce over in North Carolina. Now he's a car guy, he's a hot rodder, a round track racer, a drag racer. He's into a little bit of everything. And he recently bought this 32 Ford 5-window coupe. Now, as it turns out, I had done a video from the NSRA Street Rod National South a couple years ago that featured this car. Now, it was all complete. It was in the swap meet area and it was for sale at that time. Now, he was able to work a deal thanks to Donnie Smart, and he brought it back home to North Carolina, took the thing apart, which is unusual for a car of this caliber. Most of the time people just want to sit back and look at a car like this. This is a time capsule, but he actually wants to drive it. So he took this thing apart, he's going through it front to back, going through all the mechanicals, but he's going to retain all of the original pieces. He's going to do his best to do this car justice. And this thing's got a killer history. I love all the details that I learned about it while I was there. Now I'm going to refer to this car as the Air Force 32. There's a lot of car people who have served our country. All of the military branches have their car connections. When these people were deployed and they were overseas fighting for our freedom, you know, part of the reason they wanted to get home was to get back to their old cars. Of course they wanted to be home with their family or their girlfriend, or, you know, they wanted to be back with people that they loved, but they had a love for cars too. They had a passion, and, you know, it was more than just a hobby. So, you know, that's what a lot of these guys strived for. They wanted to get home so they could get back to that 32 Ford or to that 55 Chevrolet or whatever it was. These cars meant a lot to these people. It was a form of therapy once they got home. You know, even if they were injured or even if they weren't injured, they needed the therapy on the mental side of things as well to, you know, do something they enjoyed, do something with their hands, use the skills that they learned while they were in the service to go build their hot rod, you know, do what they wanted to do all along now that they're back home and back safe on solid ground. So, you know, cars like this, they have more than just the average history of like a high school kid who put a car together. This type of car, you know, it just goes a little deeper than that. So I really love the history on this thing. I'm going to do my best to tell you the history on it. So to go back to this car's hot rod beginnings, a guy by the name of Jim Smart found this in a storage shed off of the Elgin U.S. Air Force Base. Now, he bought this thing for $225 around 1957. And he rebuilt the flathead V8. He raced it at Herbert Field Airstrip, put Lincoln gears in the back, 356 ratio, and this thing went 104 miles an hour back in the day. It's pretty impressive for, you know, flathead V8s didn't typically make a whole lot of horsepower. But Jim also had a 40 Ford coupe during that time. It had a 55 model 265 cubic inch small block Chevrolet in it. A pretty big upgrade at the time compared to the flathead V8. Unfortunately, Jim had a shop fire. The 40 Ford caught on fire. It was burnt pretty badly, but he got it out of the shop, and we believe that he pulled that 265 out of there and put it into the 32 Ford. So this 265, it looks pretty much stock on the outside, and it doesn't have a whole lot of stuff done on the inside other than an original Isky solid lift cam. Ultimately, he ended up selling this car to Jack Cowan in around 1960, and this car stayed in Florida for all those years. It was found in 2020 in Niceville, Florida, and it was just a time capsule. It was exactly how it was, other than maybe you can see it's got some Keystone wheels, which look to be added probably in the 70s. But the rest of the car, the engine, the upholstery especially, was so nice in this car. The paint, you know, it was flaking, it had some issues, but some of that original paint was still hanging on. It was really a great survivor. It still had the 265 Chevrolet engine in it. It still had the 39 Ford transmission. The Lincoln Zephyr gears are still in there. Just a lot of cool old school pieces. The bi-ply tires, of course, look good on this car. and he's going to put some fresh tires on it. He's going to do this thing as right as he can as far as getting this car back out on the road. So I hope to do another update on this car, showing you what it looks like when it's complete, and hopefully we'll be able to see this thing run and drive and hear that engine make some noise again. I'm really looking forward to that. But while I was there, Josh showed me around his shop, and you know, it's not a really big place, but he's got a lot of cool stuff in there and a lot of cool projects. So the first thing that caught my attention was this magnesium wheel that's hanging up there. Looks like about a 15 by 10 American. Love magnesium wheels, no matter what size they are. Then he's got lots of cool grill shells hanging on the wall, including the grill shell off of this car. And then tucked up under here, he's got an old Culver City Halibrand quick change rear end. Lots of cool die-cast cars, model cars, parts and pieces, just anything you can think of that's old school hot rods, he's got it. He also had tons of vintage helmets, vintage trophies, lots of cool old pictures and things like that. And one of my favorite pieces in the shop was this chrome rear end housing. It's narrow, it looks like it went under a front engine dragster, really cool piece. And then as we made our way around, I noticed that he had a sign that says Hudson Drag Strip. And that was actually a track that I featured in my book called Lost Drag Strips that I wrote about 10 years ago. And that track was the ultimate ghost track. I mean, it was just like they turned the lights out and just walked away. The concession stand was still there, the timing tower, you know, the track itself was there. Just a really cool place. And, you know, it's not terribly far away from him there in North Carolina, but, you know, just another one of those places that was just kind of frozen in time. And then as far as other projects are concerned, he's got this Ford Model A sedan that's chopped and got a really cool stance. Got a 40 Ford coupe tucked over there on the side of the shop, and then a 34 Ford frame hanging above the two of those. Just lots of cool projects, lots of cool pieces. He had some cool stuff outside too that we may take a closer look at when we come back and feature this car. But I wanted to show you the progress on this thing and tell you a little bit of the history on it. We'll probably dig a little bit deeper when we do the full feature on it. So one of the coolest parts of this car's history is the fact that Jim Smart's nephew, Donnie Smart, was able to orchestrate the deal as far as getting this car into Josh's hands. He knows that Josh is capable of putting this car back on the road, and he was able to preserve some of his family's hot rodding history and be able to pass it on to a younger hot rodder who's willing and able to put this thing back on the road. Just a cool story, a lot of cool hot rod connections, and a lot of cool connections to our U.S. military. So really, really cool car. I'm excited to see how this thing turns out.